Welcome, everyone, to Coaches Connect. So, just as a reminder, Coaches Connect is our weekly coaching call powered by Precision Nutrition. I am your host, I guess. I'm your guide, I'm your coach, Kate Solaviova, or Solo, some people call me. I'm also PN's Director of Community Engagement and a Master Coach. And today, we are talking about all things niche, niching down, picking a niche, whether niche is even a right word, Michelle, right? Why are we even using that particular word? So what I would love to get a sense, and maybe just hop in the comments and let me know whether you here who came to the call today, whether you have a niche or whether you don't have a niche, you don't have a niche at all, you don't have a niche yet, you think you might have a niche. So give me a little bit of a sense and just like raise your hand and unmute or pop into the chat, and I will keep my eye out for both of those places. Where are you at when it comes to niche? Yeah, Kat, go ahead.
Okay. I'm like, do I actually raise my hand on a button? I didn't know. Or do I physically raise my
Oh,
hand?
that
Um,
too.
so I'm trying to figure that out. I thought I knew, and now I'm starting to second guess as I kind of like go along my journey. And I kind of feel like I'm hitting a wall in a way. Um, so my initial instinct was to reach out to people who have experienced or are in the same thing that I've already been through, because that's the person I can most relate to. So that would be for me, moms in their like 30s and 40s and up who have tons of responsibilities on their plate, and they're trying to figure out how they can still prioritize themselves. And in doing so, like most of them, we have extra weight on our bodies, we have a lot of stress, usually poor sleep quality, just, with little kids and everything. And then your body just doesn't do the same thing it used to after each pregnancy. You're getting older, your body's just changing. So learning what that should look like for you, and also being able to instill in them like a hope and a confidence that yes, you can get back to an ideal weight, and it's not like this thing that you had one time back when you were like in your 20s. um my thing that I'm having a hard time with communicating is, how do I express, because there's so much more depth to what I want to supply and offer to these women in terms of like deep health. Um, how do I communicate that well without trying to like throw the weight loss thing right in their face? Because that's not really what I want, but I feel like that's what people are looking for right off the bat. So I'm wrestling with that. Like, how do I brand this or market this in a way that is, um, yes, I will, that is part of it, but it's not the essence of it.
Yeah, well, Kat, I mean, first of all, I want to point something out to just folks here on the call is that when you consider your niche is you in many
Yeah.
ways, right? And that really often is the easiest place to start. Like when in doubt, consider who you are,
Hmm.
knowing also that who you are could be 17 different things, right? Like
Right.
you're more than a mom in your 30s or 40s. You could also be a runner. You could also be a tennis player. You could also be a competitive swimmer,
Mhm.
right? Like it's business owner, and you could cater to any one of these groups. Usually, one of those will bubble up to the surface, right? So
Yeah.
like I love the fact that that's kind of where you started, where you said like, yes, like my niche is really kind of where I'm at, and those are the people that I want to help, because you're also very aware of their struggles, of their issues, because you are them. But then you said, I thought I had a niche, but then I started doubting myself, and I'm wondering like what led to you doubting yourself? What happened between you having a niche and then going, ah, man, I don't know. Do I have a niche? Maybe I don't have a niche. Lisa's smiling because I know she
Honestly, honestly, because I kept trying to like reach out to those people, but I kept getting other people. Like I got like men and women in their 60s, like, and then I got like super young moms who hadn't really, started like that whole process yet. And I just like all over the map. So I was like, wait, what am I doing? Like my most like I would say successful in terms of outcome client is a woman like in her mid 60s, who totally different story. Like, so I don't know. That's what made me question. I'm like, if who am I drawing like that works well with me, and should I be focusing somewhere else? I don't really know how to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think like it's almost like there's certain folks that are throwing you off
Yeah.
because they're right. Like it's like, please stop coming because you're confusing me, right? Like
Yeah,
you're
but
like,
not because I'm like, I'll take
yes.
anyone, but I'm like, I am trying to like reach out, but I'm getting random. So I'm like, and then I've literally offered services for free to those people who I'm like, here I am, like I know exactly what you're going through, and they're like totally in it, and they're like, yes, yes, and then they like back out at the last minute. So I'm like, okay, something's either if it's either me or it's them, but I just feel like this idea of like communicating what I want to like powerfully, am I doing it to the right people and am I doing it in the right way? That's like I'm just kind of all scrambled up.
Yeah, and I think the one thing there will always be folks coming to you that don't quite fit neatly
Mhm.
into your niche, right? Like into the group that you seemingly selected. And to a certain extent, I think that's something to keep in mind because sometimes it's so scary to pick a group because
Mhm.
it's like, well, maybe I'll take anyone. Like maybe I'm just starting out. Like, do I really
Right.
need a niche, right? And like Rob is asking, is it possible to have more than one niche?
Mhm.
Which I think absolutely, as long as you don't have 17 of them and it doesn't change every 6 months, but you can definitely have a couple. So one thing to keep in mind though, that when we narrow down and we start speaking to one particular group of people very clearly, we will never escape the randoms who will just really resonate with who you are,
Okay.
right? Like, and they will very often, like, I might like your style so much that I might actually knock on your door and say, listen, I saw your content. I know you usually work with moms. I'm not actually a mom. Like, would you take me on? Like, would
Mhm.
that be okay? Or I'm not a mom, I'm a dad. Like, is that okay? And then you notice how it becomes kind of up to you to make that decision because you could decide if somebody is a good fit or not.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because like I started a free group challenge thing and I have like men and women and like all sorts of, that's where I'm like, wait, that's where it really, I'm just like, I don't, should I not be looking at just women? Like, I don't know. And I don't know. So I don't know. And the other thing is like I'm putting out a lot of content right now, and I even like I'm like giving a lot away, and I just can't seem to get any more new clients. Like it's like I feel like in the very beginning I had momentum and I had like a pretty steady flow for a little bit, and then it kind of just trickled down, and now I only have one, and I've only had one for months and months, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I see that Ren's here. Ren made it. I promised Ren everybody. Uh, Ren everybody. So we will loop back to some of the questions that you have raised. And Ren, we just started off. I was asking folks like, who here has a niche? Like, how is there a niche? Are you looking for a niche? Is niche a thing that you even need, right? So, and Kat was just telling us that on one hand, she's working with moms, but at the same time, she also sees herself sometimes attracting like much older folks that don't fit into that category. So, Ren, first of all, welcome. I'm so glad you made it. You need to unmute though. We've done this before, I swear. We have
I've
been
got
on.
to yeah, I don't know why it was so difficult for me to get into the Zoom meeting. I do know why, because it's going to be epic and awesome and paradigms will shift and thousands, if not millions of clients are going to be helped by it. That's why it was so difficult for me to get in.
Ren, be honest. You wanted to be fashionably late because you like
I
drama.
did.
And
Well, you
good
know, I
people are worth the wait. And now you're here.
I-
So why
so
did I asked you to be here with us today speaking about niche specifically because Ren is an awesome coach and trainer, and we go way back, and he works mostly with moms, and I will give him an opportunity to introduce himself. But niche and picking a niche is a little bit of Ren's superpower. It's not a little bit of a superpower, it's a lot of a superpower. Ren, tell us a bit about what you do.
So first of all, I work with what I just heard described, which is that mom group over 30, right? That's my particular niche. The reason that I'm in this space, and I'm only telling this story, I hope this story doesn't depress you guys, but I need to tell it because we're going to connect it to part of the coaching here in a minute, because I guarantee that in about 1.5 minutes, you're going to shift your perspective on who I am. So I started out in corporate America in the sales environment, insurance specifically. And when I was working that job, unfortunately, my older brother Rodney died suddenly of a massive heart attack. The story, as I understand it, is that his wife got into the shower. Her adult son called, who was not my brother's son, but her adult son. He said, "Hey, Keenan called." She said, "I'll call him when I get out of the shower." My sister-in-law gets out of the shower. She's now a widow because my brother has passed away suddenly in between the time he knocked on the bathroom door and the time she came out. 4 years after that, my older sister, Robin, who had been an addict at points in her life, she drank, got in a car, had a single car accident, hit a tree and died. They both died at 50. My mother had a stroke years prior to that debilitated her. So my brother gave her care until he died. My sister had my mother in her home until she died. 90 days after my sister died, her husband died. He was a dialysis patient. He refused his dialysis. He had a kidney failure. He refused his dialysis. He died 90 days to the day. For the last 2 years of my mother's life, she lived in extended care facilities because I had already moved away, having graduated from school many, many years before that. But the last 17 years of her life, she needed extended care. When I started going through the OTA level 2 certification with Jonathan Goodman in 2020, my baby sister died suddenly, and we don't even know why. So you can see, first of all, I've given you an opportunity to lock on to my humanity, right? You can also see that I'm choosing the attitude that I interact with humans with, right? You see there's a definitive choice for me not to be a sullen, drunken, addicted, angry person. But you've also understood now when I say I work with moms over 30, well, there's a definitive anchor for why Ren works with that group. I get it. And it's authentic. And by gosh, if I knew any moms over 30, I'd send somebody to them right now, based on that story alone. So that's one part of my story that needs to be explained. The other part is that I work with Jonathan Goodman in the Online Trainer Academy as a mentor, not pitching that here, but I'm just telling you that I talked to about 6 to 10 coaches every single day about building their business, in addition to the fact, obviously, that my actual university expertise is in business. That's what I graduated with. I was never a jock or a meathead, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that's an adequate explanation, Kate, as you sip your delicious, whatever the delicious thing you have. I shall sip now.
This is instant coffee. I am ashamed.
You should be.
The desperate times. Ren, thank you so much for sharing. And I think as folks here, I mean, I've noticed, like, I don't know if you saw, everyone who's on video was kind of like leaning in and gasping, right? Like as you were describing. But
Yes.
I think that, perhaps not a lot of people, thankfully, can relate to that story in that sense, like with the sheer amount of grief, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the one thing I really want to pull out for coaches is when we consider people who we want to help, it's very rarely we just wake up in the morning and say, what would be fun? It's very often coming from a personal struggle of some kind that we ourselves were faced with and needed to solve, and very often couldn't solve with the resources and people that were available to us, right? And there is that feeling of like, by golly, I want to do that for other people. I want to prevent other moms from dying, other sisters from dying, right? Like, so they would have the person, like, I want to, what's the platitude that's going through my head now? I want to be the person like I wish I had when I was younger. It's that.
That is a substantial center point for your niche, right? Becoming the thing that you once needed. And what's so conflicting about that is it rests heavily on self-perception, self-belief, any flirtation you have with that old imposter syndrome, because you may initially choose to shy away from the reality of your own life, right? And the thing about being authentic is that we don't have a problem being authentic. If we could put a camera in the shower with you, we'd know who you are. in a minute based on what you sing and how well you do that in the shower, right? Authenticity is easy. Trust in authenticity is where the building starts to collapse. You don't trust your enoughness. Yeah, I've got a story, but it's not like Ren's story. I can write good programs, but I can't write programs like Kate can. I can coach people, but I don't know the details of what I want to do before I start. Like the wrestling with the indecisive nature of who we are is such a core element that makes it difficult for us to substantially lean into the niche the way that we need to. And one more quick point, Kate, this is more philosophical and I hope inspirational, but I live my existence with the thought that God, source, universe, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever you believe in, Darwin, for God's sakes, put certain humans on this planet that if they never interact with me, they never get a shot at the one existence that they have. I work consistently with that thought process. Who are those 5,000 humans whose life never pans out if they never interact with me? And am I sending the appropriate bat signal into the air to alert them to the fact that I exist and I'm prepared to handle them? That blows away any thoughts of imposter syndrome or need to be less than my authentic self, because they can't find me if I'm wearing the mask, right? I've got to take all the costume off so they can clearly see me. And I've got to put on a shirt that says, hey, I'm here pretty much only for you, right? And that's what the niche allows me to do. I digress. I'm going to be quiet now, Kate. You take it.
Well, I think actually, Ren, back to you because I want to throw this question at you, which might seem a little blasphemous given the topic, but
that's all right.
I guess, I like blasphemous, so here we go.
That's right.
Do we need a niche? Because sometimes, and disagree with me maybe, because my advice my advice is twofold to folks that are starting out and trying to figure out the niche, where piece of advice number one, you don't need a niche. First of all, you need to find 10 people that you're going to help. And when you're going to find those 10 people, the niche will emerge, right? That's piece of advice number one. And piece of advice number two is, if in doubt, start with yourself. And that might be, who are you? Are you a mom over 30? Are you a dad over 40? Are you somebody who has lost a sister and a mom, right? And wants to help other women? Are you somebody who has suffered from anxiety and has overcome it? Like, what is your personal story and how can you tap into that? Because it would be very strange for me, and we both see that sometimes, Ren, where we see folks who say, I want to work with busy professionals. And it's like, but why? Well, I think that the belief being, well, busy professionals, they need the help, but also they can afford our help, and therefore it's like, but do you care? Like, busy professional? It would be so weird for me to start working with busy accountants tomorrow. Like, I know nothing about accounting. I don't care about accounting. I try to interact with my accountant once a year and no more. So there is no personal tug-in. So what do you think? Do we need a niche?
I'll tell you this. Great question, by the way, Kate. I love this question. And like most questions that most coaches will field in any genre of any conversation.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Are you going to depends me right now?
It depends, Kate. So here's what I'm saying. I like several different overlapping concepts here. I like the concept of the buffet, right? Because if you take me to a new restaurant, Kate, and I've never been there before, and I have a choice between an entree and the buffet, I'm going to go to the buffet, the cafeteria style line for people who don't know what a buffet is. I am going to go and sample a little bit. I'm going to have a little bit of that crab rangoon. I'm going to have a little bit of that lasagna, a little bit of that pizza. This is a strange restaurant. They have way too wide a selection. I'll talk to the manager about that later. But I'm going to sample a little bit of what they have. Maybe the second time, buffet again. Maybe the third time, I've had enough items off of the buffet. I think I want the lasagna entree this time. I don't need to test everything else. So I want to give a coach the space to willingly explore by doing exactly what you said, Kate. Get 10 clients, because the most important thing, The important thing is that you know you have who you're talking to. The most important thing is that you don't go out of business while you're figuring out who you're talking to, right? So you need to exist to help those 5,000 people that I dropped the philosophical leaning on, that they only exist because I'm important. Like, you need to not go out of business to get there. So I'm all for not having a niche. Another thing that I want to point out is that oftentimes we have a niche and we don't realize it. Because I'm specifically working with online coaches as a function of the Online Trainer Academy, I'll get people who will come to me and they'll say, oh, I work with everybody. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to be trapped into, don't reduce me. I've been doing this for 20 years. I can handle everybody. And what I often say to them is that you can handle everybody, but if you've been working in the in-person environment, there may be a niche there that you did not realize. Proximity, for instance. Do you work with everybody? Or do you work with everybody who lives, works, and plays within 10 miles of where your gym is that wants to get healthy? It's not everybody, because you don't work with the people that I work with in Charlotte, North Carolina, but your proximity by default may be your niche, and you never considered it. Do you work with everybody? Or do you work with everybody that likes you? Or do you work with everybody that speaks your language? Or do you work with everybody that wants to get stronger? So the niche will sometimes it'll sometimes sneak into your life without you knowing it, just because you haven't done the deep dive to try to figure out what the correlation is between all of your clients at the moment. But I do not think that you need a niche. I think that certain situations prevent you from needing it. Specifically online, I think about the fact that you may have already established an incredible following. You have 10,000, 100,000, 500,000 people. Really easy to be a generalist. You may be in a very, very small environment whereby you're the local town doc. Doc, how the cows this morning? I take little Timmy bumped his knee. Can you take a look at him, Doc? Sure, I've got 3 free hours because there's only 600 people in this town. Let's take a look. Versus the pediatric neurosurgeon who only deals with cancer, pediatric cancer. You're very, very niche down there. And even if you're in a massive population, now you are specifically the go-to person, the obvious choice. Somebody tell Jonathan Goodman I said that. You're the obvious choice at this point for anyone who has a lovely child who's unfortunately dealing with that type of severe illness. So, but I think all answers and all roads in this question, Kate, lead back to the authenticity conundrum, right? Do I know, accept, and am I willing to transparently be who I actually am? That one thing to me sort of solves this issue, because you can't help. There's a saying that I used to use in sales: set yourself on fire with enthusiasm, and people will come from miles around to watch you burn, right? When you're suppressing your authenticity, there's no way for you to set yourself on fire with enthusiasm. Thereby, there's no way for people to come from miles around to watch you burn. If I'm talking about my mom, who I miss dearly and love, and I'm talking about my sister, somebody's going to see that and say, hey, have you heard this guy's story? Man, let me tell you what he's been through. And let me tell you how optimistic and compassionate and jovial he is. You've got to meet this guy. Well, if I'm pretending to be a musclehead who's super serious about my testosterone and my supplements, and I rip my shirt off every day and do pull-ups on social media, I'm not being authentic to who I am actually. And thereby the attraction that I'm going to create is going to be as inauthentic as I am in every regard. And I think that's where things kind of get mixed up for people. I hope that's a satisfactory answer, Coach Kate.
I'm never satisfied, but that was a valiant effort. We will keep
Don't make me spit my water.
Well, Cecil actually brings up an interesting point in the chat there. It's generalist versus specialist, right? Because you'll notice sometimes, like what I see very often is folks that are leaning generalist really struggling as they're trying to bend themselves backwards into this like specialist box. And then because you're supposed to be specific, somebody used that example with me, and we were kind of both giggling, right? Like if you take this niching down example to its logical absurdity, this is how you often will see the helping statement where somebody says, you know, I help 25 to 35-year-old baking enthusiasts in New Jersey. And it's like, that doesn't make any freaking sense, right? But I can see how you got there, unfortunately, right? Like it is absolute gibberish. So I think it's also valuable to kind of see, like, you know, somebody, like, consider how specific someone's niche is. If you are a triathlon coach, getting somebody to the finish line of their first Ironman. My goodness, like that's incredible. That will never be me because I just don't have the freaking attention span to be that specific, right? And I mean, if you like consider Ren's demographic, like it's moms over 30. It's actually not super specific. And yet there is an overlay. There is an overlay of Ren's personality and attitude and life story, right? Like it all comes together because there are different moms over 30 out there. And I bet in the next few months, if you come across a friend of yours who is a mom over 30 and who might have gone through a loss, who might have lost a sibling, must have lost a parent, maybe to a preventable condition, maybe to an accident, I bet you will think of Ren, right? Like it's just going to be that natural connection. And I think of Ren like moms over 30 and health and fitness professionals who want to talk niche, right? Like those are kind of like the people in my mind that Ren would immediately pop up. So when we're talking about niching down, on one hand, you don't have to. Like we can kind of help, quote unquote, everybody. But everybody is already a misnomer because not everybody likes you. Not everybody is close enough to you. And even the very language you use, the way you look, will turn on and turn off some people. So somebody could work with busy mom professionals over 30, and somebody could be working with, listen for the language, healthy mamas who want to glow from within. Those are two completely different groups of women, even though they're technically both mothers over 30, but you're going to pick how you show up and those corresponding moms will pop up.
That's right. The other side of this niche coin, and I hope there's questions that we're going to answer. I don't want to give a dissertation here, but the other end of these yes, Venn diagram. That's a Venn diagram. I love it, Heather. Thank you for that. Better trademark it quick though, because I'll sell shirts. But the other side of this niche coin is, particularly online, is from the perspective of the ill-advised, underinformed client, right? Because, and this is where I go when coaches tell me, I can work with everybody. I say, yes, you can. And I don't want to limit you. But if you're going to operate online, either exclusively or partially, the challenge becomes that your potential client cannot differentiate. Imagine a thirsty person in the middle of the desert going into the local convenience store, wanting to have something to drink. And they get to this huge cooler. I mean, the cooler is the entirety of the back wall, which isn't uncommon. And every one of the bottles in the cooler look eerily similar, and they all say liquid on them. What do they buy? Right? How do they know? They didn't fill up the bottles, right? They have a couple of choices. They can make an attempt to sample each of the bottles, which could come with prosecution, right? Or they could ask someone incessantly, or they can default to price, which is something that you may often see, particularly online, if you're not speaking directly to a targeted end user. They may say, hey, I see you're a coach. What are your rates? What they're saying is, I don't know a CES from a CPT, from a PN1, from a P. I have no idea what that means. I know that I'm not happy in my body right now. I'm trying to figure out who the best person is. And since I can't differentiate and I'm too shy and introverted to ask questions, I'm just going to choose by price. So can you tell me that? Because I understand that. You know, I always tell coaches, imagine there's probably 500,000 coaches in the world. I'm guessing, right? I don't know strict numbers, but let's reduce it. Let's say there's only 100,000, and you put them all into your training facility. All 100,000 coaches are in your gym. You all look like coaches, and everybody's wearing a white T-shirt that says "Coach." And I bop in, right? Because I'm looking for a coach. Coincidentally, for the purpose of the story, my older siblings were both basketball players. I'm 5'7". I cannot convert that to centimeters. I'm American, for God's sake. But I'm 5'7". My older brother was 5'11". My older sister 6 feet even, no shoes. Both basketball players. I played soccer for that reason. Football to everyone else around the world. But imagine I go in there and I'd say, I need a coach. And 100,000 people turn around and say, I'm a coach, in unison. And I'm like, crap. Okay, what are your rates? Okay, you, what are your rates? Okay, ma'am, you look fit, what are your rates? And then one coach turns around and says, I help Black guys from North Carolina who are under 6 feet tall dominate the basketball court on the weekend. Now I'm like, holy shit balls. You're, pardon my French, you're my coach, right? Because we need is a strong word. It may suit you best to educate the underinformed about their selection by highlighting to them quickly that you are the person that specializes in exactly what they need. Now, again, we have this friction with authenticity. Am I presenting what I think the consumers want, or am I presenting what I actually am? Right? There's a friction there. But if I'm always shifting how I'm presenting, the chances are I'm going to miss every single time. When the person that comes and looks for a coach that works with habit-based nutrition, but I say I do macros because macros is the flavor of the month, I miss that person. I switch to habit-based, person who wants macros comes around, I miss that one. Yeah, I switch again to keto because keto is popular right now. I'll do that. And the person who is vegan shows up, right? If I had been my authentic self through every iteration of what I am, whatever that authenticity is, I greatly increase the chances that one person will happen upon me, learn about what I do, and probably mention me to other like-minded, like-situated individuals. It's a better play because the niche isn't about reducing your capability. It's about alerting the underinformed so they can easily identify if you are for them or if you're not. People jump off of my social media all the time, almost every post. I love it because they show up expecting me to talk about squats and muscles, and I talk about the luteal phase of your cycle versus follicular. And dudes are like, bro, this is weird. This dude's weird. Delete, right? And I'm like, sweet. I trimmed it down again, right? So it's okay to not know. It's okay to work generally, probably advised initially to work generally. At some point, if you want to ascend in terms of your notoriety, if you want to attract a probably better quality client, and if you want your job to be easier by being able to template your process because you've customized the humans to your process instead of customizing your process to each individual human. I mean, I don't know how much time you guys have, but I don't have that kind of time to work so broadly across the spectrum to really customize and individualize excellent coaching. But I can create excellent coaching for a type of individual and then continue to enroll that type, thereby customizing their experience. And also, if you want to dive into your own education, look, I've taken the Girls Gone Strong Level 1. I've taken pre and postpartum. I took 3 different menopause certifications this summer alone. I'm diving deep into awareness of what my client needs and only what they need. Anybody who's fitter, taller, funnier, which will never happen, or better informed generally cannot compete with the fact that I can sit across the table from a 45-year-old woman and ask her, so tell me about your genitourinary syndrome of menopause. How's that affecting your pelvic health? And what do you feel comfortable talking about and not? Because I don't want to breach the line, and I'm happy to refer you out to either a gynecologist of your choice, approved through the National North American Menopause Society, or to your general practitioner who may refer you out to maybe a pelvic physiotherapist. Are you familiar with like I can't be competed with in that context because I have the space to dive deep instead of spreading myself wide. So there are some advantages and some disadvantages, but the pediatric surgeon is going to draw a greater income and notoriety, if that's important, than the general practitioner, as much as I love my favorite doctor, Dr. Kennedy, right? But he's a general practitioner. Awesome. But if I get in a specific jam, I'm going to ask him to send me to someone else who my insurance is going to have to cut a larger check to, so that I can solve a specific problem. I hope that's helpful. I shall again.
What I'm thinking of here, it's almost like stages, right? Because I think eventually
Yes.
we will want to arrive at some sort of notoriety in a certain thing, right? Where,
Yes.
but at first we probably are going to start general. Like I'm sort of thinking, sometimes you have folks that want to get into a particular activity or a sport, right? Like I want to start playing soccer and I've never played a day of soccer in my life. So I'm going to spend 3 months researching cleats. And the truth is, I just need to put any old shoes, and they're not even soccer shoes, and I look stupid on the field, and it doesn't matter because I don't know what those white things with the net are called. You think I'm exaggerating? I actually don't. What are they called? Gates? Nets?
It's a net. It's a net. It's a goal.
There we go, right? So like I know what they're called in Russian, no idea, right? So, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the best cleats because I actually need to get on the field and start playing in order. Oh, like I need this. Oh, okay. Like you then realize what kind of stuff you need, gear you need, tools you need. And the same applies even like we're kind of going outside the topic a little bit, but when folks like, which payment processor is better or which platform, it's like it actually doesn't matter because we still need to start coaching in order for those things to become apparent, like to become apparent as to where the gaps are. So I actually want to open up the floor to folks here and use chat or use like a raise hand feature if you have questions, like anything niche, like let's just jam a little bit just so we're not talking at you. And as you're coming up with those questions, I'll highlight something that Lisa brought up. It's an example I've used a million times, so you might have heard me say that. And Ren, I don't know if you heard me say that. I think of niche as something like, what is it that you need to overhear at a neighborhood picnic for somebody to go, I know who you should talk to? Right? And the example that I use, that I have this friend, she's a lovely, lovely person. She's a spirituality coach. To this day, I don't know what that means, right? And I would love to know what that means because and here's what I don't understand. What I don't understand is what is it that I need to hear a friend of mine say for me to say, you should talk to my friend Brandy, who's a spirituality coach, right? So what are some of the things that people will say, right? Like, so somebody might be a burnout coach and they work with really tired parents that are exhausted. So are you thinking of the sentences that you might overhear? Somebody says, I'm so burnt out. I'm so tired. Like the kids have been up all night. And you're like, oh, I know somebody you should talk to. It's that. It's like, what is it that I need to overhear in order to go, Lisa, Ron, Jim, right? Like whoever. So that's sort of how I think about it. Okay, so pausing here. Let me see some hands or let me see some waves or dance around, make some noise. Who has a question, a concern, who's struggling with their niche? Yes, Jean Mark. I saw you wave. That was well done, Coach.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello. You hear me?
Hi, how are you? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm called from Africa. We have the French country, so I try to speak English well. So excuse me. So before the COVID, I struggled so much because I lost my house, my wife, my job, and I find in the internet and I look the precision nutrition for the first time. But precision nutrition helped me to overcome my personal difficulties. But I decided to be the coach. But I use my own story. I work in a sales environment. I work in insurance and in real estate. All my life, I sell everything. So I'm a salesman, but sales is emotional. If you face a emotional time, you can't sell anything. But the only one thing that you have to sell is your name. I decided to use my personal and my family name like a brand. But building the brand means that move to the bottom to the top. And people around me look my life. I say, so this guy will never achieve. I say, look at me, and time after time, year after year, I overcome every challenge, and I bring back my family. I bring back my job, and the only thing that I have to sell now is my name. And I open my advice company like a Kai International, just to advise a company and have a personal services. And I decided to be a nutrition coach with precision nutrition tools and all lesson. But I use the precision nutrition tools to my business, the same coaching in precision nutrition to my business. But my niche is my story, because I want to talk. I am an energetic man. I want to talk, not to see the table say, look this, take this, share this. I want to be authentic. That people around me say, I need this authentic people. Because you live my story, and I know that with you, I can reach every step of my life, because I prefer coach with my own story because it's more authentic. But in Africa here, people looking for authentic people, because there are some fake coach in everything, religious coach, coach in business, coach in this.
Jean-Marc,
Yeah.
I want to pause you there. Take me to the concern. I think I understand well enough what your background is. Take us to the concern that you have. What problem might we solve for you?
Yeah, for me is that niche. How can I engage that niche and help them to achieve the goals, the nutrition goal?
So are you asking, I want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. What I think I hear you saying is you want to know how you can operate within the niche that you've picked for yourself as a person who has overcome something and has a sales background. And am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's correct.
Oh, yeah. Okay, very good. Very good. So first of all, the first thing that I think about when you say real estate is how visual real estate is for the agent, right? Like as you're sitting here talking to us now, I see a very sharp individual with his tie, his suit, relatively lean by my perception. Yes, and I think you have a lapel pin. I'm an old fashioned guy, so I love fashion. I used to I used to be a retail clothier. That's one of the jobs I had before I got through college. So I help real estate agents present their best self to their potential clients as they would present the best real estate to their potential clients. Are you a real estate agent? Would you like to present the best version of yourself while also presenting the best listings to your clients? My name is Jean-Marc. I help real estate agents make sure that they not only show their clients amazing homes, but they show them their amazing persona and confidence, right? It just makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you the way I expressed it? I think you're muted now, Jean-Marc.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's okay.
Yeah, so you're driving into what you already know, which is sales. You've done sales in a very visual place, and I know whether this is fair or not, Kate, and it's not fair, but it's the reality.
Yeah.
Attractive people do better in real estate. That's just, I mean, I didn't pick that, but that's the reality. So it seems like a very clear pathway from what you know and what you've done, the amazing story that you have, which I think you should share more often, and the market that you're relatively familiar with. That's not to say that you can't take someone else, but that's immediately what comes to my mind. Just allowing yourself to do it is where sometimes the obstacle presents. So Seneca said we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality, right? So action is a great way to beat back apprehension, right? Action over apprehension. I hope that was helpful. Anybody else got it?
So Ren, I'll jump in here because what I want to point out here that you've done that I thought was very interesting, and I've had you do this to me, and it's very uncomfortable, I gotta say. You actually narrowed in, right? Like you took the problem, but you narrowed in. And I want to share like a personal story here where that I found quite traumatic at the time, actually, where Ren, you might remember this because you and I ended up talking about my niche as a result, where I went to my coach at the time and I worked with this individual for 3.5 years. And at the end of the 3.5 years, I said, Coach, tell me, who would you send my way? It's the barbecue question. And she said, oh my God, Kate. No, I feel so silly. No, I know what you do. Can you imagine how that felt? And she was so apologetic. And it wasn't on her. And I knew it wasn't on her. 100%. I said, oh my God, thank you, first of all. Also, ouch, right? Because there is somebody, and this is like, we're not talking 15 years ago, we're talking like a year ago, right? Like so this is somebody who's been in the field for over 10 years, coaching folks of all walks of life, right? And here's somebody who is also in the space who doesn't know who she would send to me from a neighborhood picnic. Like a dagger through my heart, let me tell you. And then I reached out to Ren, and Ren and I had a conversation about my niche. And Ren did the same thing that he just did with John Mark here. He said, well, Kate, like, you work with health and wellness professionals? And I went, right? It's like, I don't want to limit myself. Those are not the only people I work with. And there is very often this resistance, I find, and I see that with folks of all walks of life, very common with career shifters, right? Like where somebody might be working in tech, working in corporate, working in sales, working in real estate. And they say, you know what? I found my passion. I actually don't want to be in real estate anymore. I want to coach nutrition. Who should I coach? You should coach real estate agents. And we go, no, right? Like, you should coach health and wellness professionals. No. So I would like to tell you all that that's when, I found my senses and I actually clarified who it is I work with. But first I dragged my feet and kicked my heels for about a year, resisting that. And then a couple of months ago, there was somebody who messaged me and said, Kate, somebody was talking to me, a friend of mine, and she said they just finished like a whole bunch of certifications in nutrition and personal training, and they had no idea what to do next. And I immediately thought of you. And I was like, oh my God, that only took me 12 years. Okay, yay. But it was the fact that my name popped right off the way, like right away. It was that popped, and it took all that work. So Ren, I just want to say thank you, right? Like for the kind of the narrowing in, despite all the kicking and screaming on my part.
Yes.
We do have a question from Linda, and Linda says, I'm not really sure what my niche is. I love sharing. I wonder if somebody, I'm not sure. Ren, can you mute for a second? And I just want to see if that's on your end. No, that might be Linda, actually. Oh, Linda, there you are. I'm just reading your question out, and you're waving right there. Did you want to go on Mike and just kind of tell us in your own words, or I can read it out?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Linda. I'm from Kenya. I started a company called Fit Kitchen, where we provide clients with healthy, nutritious meals as a restaurant and also meal prep. And over like the 2-3 years, I've had so many questions about nutrition and health, and I basically understood the general part, and that's why I came into precision nutrition. However, I've reached a point where I really want to get more into the space of coaching people and helping them understand how crucial and important it is to eat healthy, and how you can literally have healthy food and still have it eat healthy food and it's still being tasty. So I had a couple questions. First of all, I already have a page for the business. So I'm stuck between my page as a business and posting as myself as an individual. I don't know which space I should post at, and if it should be like a combine. There's a thing that Instagram does where you combine collaboration with the business and yourself as an individual. Me and myself as don't have as many followers, so I'm really not sure what space I can fall into. And then I'm also afraid of being called out on like your bullshit from other people. So it's just like there are moments where I learn something and I'm like, oh my God, I want to share this. And then you take a video or you're about to do a post and you're like, okay, I'm not so sure about this. So then I don't do it. I don't post my face. I just share information as a post or as a reel and then leave it as is and just hope for the best.
I
And
hope
then
everyone saw Ren's face as Linda was speaking, because he was like Cheshire Cat, right? Like just smiling ear to ear. And Linda, I know Ren well enough to know it's the smile of like, my goodness, you're so not alone. And I hear that so often, this struggle. Ren, am I right?
Absolutely, 100%. This is 80% of what I deal with new coaches, right? This fear of the hypothetical, right? There was an awful movie with Will Smith. I know that's a bad name these days, but I'm gonna use this example anyway. There's an awful movie with Will Smith and his son Jaden. It's called After Earth. I'm a sci-fi geek, so I enjoyed it. But one of my favorite lines from that movie, yeah, Preston feels me. One of my favorite lines from that movie is, if you're in danger, you need to be careful. If you're fearful, fear is not real. Fear is a choice. Danger is real, but fear is a choice. And that falls on deaf ears when you're in the midst of fear. I realize that. I say that not to shift your thought, but to offer you a reframe that you can go back to as you're undoubtedly reasoning with yourself through the course of your career. I needed some anchor statements myself to prevent me from collapsing in on my own introversion, right? In terms of somebody calling you out on bullshit, I want to give you guys a story, and this story is in the link that I sent Kate for an article that I wrote about niche for Personal Training Development Center, and this article was eventually picked up by ACE. And it was the fact that in a group where I was speaking with women from Girls Gone Strong, the organization, I called a hypothetical woman a female, right? And immediately about 5 or 6 ladies said, a female what? Female is a sex. Do you mean a woman? Then say woman. Because a female could be a dog, could be a cat. Right there in front of everybody, Linda, that bullshit finger that you just wonderfully described was pointed squarely at me. And you know what I did? Number one, I learned a lesson, right? The second thing I did, I said, thank you for correcting me, because they did. And the third thing I did was never repeat that again, unless in the context of this story, right? There's some unusual phenomenon. Maybe Kate can explain it because she's the big brain on psychology. But there's some unusual phenomenon by which humans grow to adulthood, completely forget the act of learning, and somehow remember that when mommy said get up and walk, we just got up and walked perfectly. Nobody fell on their bottom. Nobody tripped over anything. Nobody ended up crawling when they were supposed to walk. We have this misconception that we are able to transition to higher forms of ability in the absence of all mistakes. And it does not exist. It is the greatest, for me, of all self-limiting beliefs, that there's some way to do this thing, to capture some new version of myself that does not involve me making error. And this may be disappointing, it may be empowering, but that phenomenon does not exist. There is no method of you improving in any way that is completely absent of you making horrendous mistakes. I say the opposite. I would challenge you to go out tomorrow and try to find as many mistakes as you possibly can, thereby accelerating your progress as a human on this planet, because the time is going to pass anyway. Whether you make the mistakes or not, the time is going to slip through your grasp eventually, and we will be on the other side of existence. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up publicly, because the greatest thing that happens when you mess up publicly is you get to prove to people what an incredible human you are by subsequently apologizing and acknowledging publicly that you've messed up. And believe it or not, error will attract more clients to you than perfection ever will. 100% the case. I've been doing this long enough to know that. I remember when you said that. That was so funny. And you know what I always respected about you, Ren? You came right back and you did another video and said, forget that last stuff I said, I was wrong. And that's why I follow you. And that's why I trust what you say when you say, because I know when you make an error, I can also trust you to admit that. See, there's a balance in trust that requires us to lack perfection, acknowledge our lack of perfection, and keep going. It's a foundational and fantastic way to build trust with your community. So I hope that that brings you some solace, that you get to act your activity, because just like me, Linda, there are 5,000 humans on the planet. And if they never hear about nutrition the way you talk about it, if they never hear about fitness the way you describe it, if they never hear about health from your level of compassion, with your beautiful accent, although you're probably saying I have the accent right now, but if they never hear about it from you, they never change. And weighed against that mission, I have to be able to tolerate a few mistakes. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, Linda, you're muted, my dear.
Yeah, I was saying that is really helpful, especially the part where you spoke about being apologize, acknowledge, and rectify. And I think the example you gave about how you speak in your podcast and just say, oh, what I said earlier is wrong, what I'm saying is right now, is right, or rather corrected, makes a lot of sense, because there's so much information about nutrition and health that is continuously changing and developing. Okay, and then I have two more questions.
I'll give you shorter answers this time, I promise.
Okay, so you didn't answer the first question, the one I asked about where I post now as a full front as a coach.
Yeah, let's pause there, Linda. Ren, that's probably a pretty common one as well.
Either, your choice, dealer's choice here, right? What's important is that you figure out the appropriate place to post. What's more important is that you are a lighthouse. It's more important that you turn the light on than which direction the light spins, right? The ships are crashing on the rocks. You're saying, should the light spin counterclockwise or should it spin clockwise?
You promised a shorter answer.
Yeah, that's it.
There was another one, Linda. Go ahead.
Okay, and then the other question was sometimes I get clients who ask me certain questions and things and advice about health and nutrition, and people will start talking to me about how their health and wellness is, and I just start giving some advice. So first of all, how do I give realistic rates, considering I'm starting off? And then number two, how do I convert these people into paying clients?
Okay, this is a little bit more complex, so I'm going to boil it down to simplicity. The first thing I would say is, in an initial conversation, I never coach, I never give rates, right? I'm asking. It's a buy, sell, buy. And what I mean by that is I'm buying first. I'm asking the questions here. Then when I've bought enough, I will sell on what I think I can accomplish. And then I will actually buy again and try to get the client to explain to me, not their worthiness. I want them to give me some inclination of their interest, dedication, prioritization into the process. It's very similar to an interview that you might have at a company you're going to join, right? You're not going to go into an interview and say, hey, tell me all about this company. What does your company do? What do you pay? Right? That's not going to happen. They're not going to sell first. They're going to buy first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's going on? What's your situation? Where did you graduate from? And then they're going to tell you, you're going to tell them some things, and then they're going to say, let's tell you a little bit about Jones, Jones, and Jones. We were founded in 1994, and we have the highest rating, blah, blah, blah. And our tenured associates make this amount, and we have the highest rate of, and then they're going to say, now tell us a little bit about why you'd be right for Jones, Jones, and Jones, right? They're going to buy, get all the information from you. They're going to sell, and then they might question your determination, prioritization, interest. Tell me why now. Why is it important to you now that you get this done, right? So I want to get all that information first, and then I want to summarize it. Okay, I'm going to summarize to make sure I understand what you've said here today, okay? Is that all right? And I'm going to spit back to you the most masterful summary that you've ever heard in your God-given life. You will know that I am the leader in listening for my entire continent when I summarize. I'm going to summarize things that you meant to say and you didn't say, because that's what coaching is. I'm an effective listener, and I've got that experience to hear between the lines, so to speak. And then I'm going to say, is it okay for me to tell you a little bit about my process and how it would work, right? So put yourself in the driver's seat. People will want to control your process because they're amateurs, but you don't want to put an amateur in control of the process. They hurt themselves, right? So you have to be professional. Professionals have a process, and they don't deviate from it. I've just got one or two more sentences, Kate, I promise. You're not going to go into a medical office and not walk up to the desk and not get that clipboard with the pen attached and not fill out a piece of paper and not sit in the seat and not wait for somebody to come from behind the doors. It's your time, come on back, right? Professionals have a process, and when people try to operate outside of your process, they deprive themselves of professionalism. So you're not being pushy, you're protecting the professionalism that the person needs by making sure that you're in control of the process. DM me or message me or something. There's a lot more complexity to sales than just that, but that's what I feel comfortable boiling it down to per the question. I hope that's at least initially helpful.
Yeah, and I think,
Yes,
Ren, what I
it is.
want to highlight, just based on what you said, Linda, to your question, right? Like we don't coach in those initial conversations. And if we do, I think of it as I will coach you to more clarity as to whether or not we're the right fit at this time. That's the coaching that we're going to do, right? And and you will get a taste of what my coaching is like and what my coaching philosophy is like through that process.
One more thing, Kate, before I get to Heather, because I meant to say this. When it comes to pricing, people will try to push you for price. Oftentimes what I use the analogy of a wedding. I say, that's a great question, and I'm eager to discuss that with you. But much like a wedding or event planner, I can't just tell you how much a wedding costs. I'm sure you can understand that. I sort of need to know the venue, the date, whether it's going to be a band or a DJ. I'll DJ, by the way, if you want me to. I'll throw some humor in it. I'll DJ, by the way, if you want me to. I need to know how many guests. You kind of see where I'm coming from. I've not met a person who did not understand that analogy and backed off the pricing question to allow me to say, but if I'm able to get a little bit more information for you, I'm happy to put together the perfect wedding for you. Does that sound okay? And usually they'll back off of that question. So I hope that's helpful.
Brent, that's a good one. I've used the shoulder surgery analogy before. I don't know if you've heard that one, right? Like you can't really call a shoulder doctor and say, hey doc, I think I need shoulder surgery. How much?
Right.
That's not a thing. Like I don't even know if you need shoulder surgery. Like I've never seen your shoulder. I don't know what's going on. Like, right? Like we gotta talk more. So there you go,
So
y'all.
true.
A wedding or a shoulder surgery, if you'd like. It's that time. We're a little bit over time. I was glad to do it because guest of honor. And Ren, this was incredible as always.
No, I know Heather raised her hand. Okay. I saw the hand signal. There's a high five.
She was giving you all the claps.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Heather.
All the claps and the thumbs up. So pop in the chat, say thank you to Ren if this was helpful. And I hope we will see you again in Coaches Connect. Let me know if we should have Ren again in Coaches Connect, where there's so many things we could talk about, right, Ren?
Yeah, a lot.
I want to remind everybody that our next Coaches Connect is actually on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we have a follow-up from a Facebook Live that I hosted earlier this week with a breathwork facilitator, Iona Holloway. We're doing a live demo breathwork. So show up with a yoga mat and a blanket. We're going to do the thing. So that's going to be incredible as well. So thank you, everyone. And I hope I will see you next week. And Ren, thank you so much.
I'm connected in the post that Kate listed about this event. So if you want to DM me, just go back to that link and click on Ren Jones. It's highlighted in the post. Sorry about that, Kate. Thank you, Kate. I'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.